Nobody ever imagines themselves as a victim. I certainly didn't. I admit I was kind of a cocky little shit. So maybe I deserved to be here. Half naked in a swamp with a bullet in my chest. I think there was also a bullet in my head. Either that or I cracked my skull on something while in the process of crawling out of my makeshift grave. I am a Army Master Sergeant, Adam Severjan. I said out loud to no one. I needed to remain conscious. I needed to survive. This was no different from a deployment, except instead of fighting for my country, for the chance to prove myself, I was fighting to dig myself out of a shithole of my own creation. I am Adam Severjan, husband, father, addict. Tears filled my eyes. My wife and daughter were miles away in Biloxi, Mississippi. I had no fear of death and dying, but eventually they would find out how badly I have fucked up. I lost thousands of dollars in gambling, booze, heroin, and meth. I should have just gotten out when I had the chance. Instead, I turned tricks, ran drugs, and became a bitch to avoid becoming a bitch. The idea made me laugh. Oh, fuck, I'm going to die. No, you're not. The male voice sounded calm, serene. Do you even know where you are? I know I'm imagining you, whatever the fuck you are. Because the mighty Master Sergeant Adam could never be communicating with an angel, the voice said with a laugh. The grass in front of me started to blow in the wind. The blades of grass seemed to grow taller, their shadows forming the shape of a man with long wavy hair. Is that who you are? I asked with a chuckle. A sharp pain struck my side. I definitely had broken ribs. As the angel came closer, he seemed to materialize into a mortal form. Olive skin, green eyes, and hair that seemed to be streaked with red, blue, purple, and gold. What do you think I am? You kind of look like the Lord Jesus Christ, I said, my voice starting to slur into a southern accent, as I felt my mind drifting away. The angel laughed as he ran his fingers through his rainbow hair. I'll take that as a compliment. He then reached over his shoulder and pulled on a golden cloak out of thin air. Are you ready to go? Go where? The angel shrugged. Does it matter? I guess not. Any place had to be better than dying alone in the swamp. The angel reached out his hand. You can call me Leo. I took his hand as I did. A series of letters flashed before my eyes. E, N, V, Y. The letters were in this thick black font, as if someone was throwing them at my face. But why envy? I jolted awake in full uniform, outside of a commander's office. I had been there before, but where was I? Come in, said a female's voice. I knew who it was. Lieutenant General Alyssa Blake. I was back at my station in Alaska, still afraid how the hell I managed to travel back in time. I took a breath and entered the office, giving the appropriate salute. The much younger woman had blonde hair, light blue eyes, and lips that made me dream of what she looked like out of uniform. At ease, she said with her soft, breathy voice. She returned the salute and motioned me to take a seat. Alyssa never sounded like an officer. She gave off ASMR, that tingly feeling down your spine. She was a pageant queen, beautiful, brilliant, but more than anything, she was kind. Her wonderful heart was the only thing keeping me from bending her over the desk and fucking her brains out. Sat down, focusing my eyes on the floor. I at least knew what the meeting was about. Thank you for meeting with me, ma'am. Of course, Sergeant. Do you still want the transfer? Was this a memory or a test? The transfer to Mississippi? Yes, unless there was another position you were interested in pursuing. Sorry, I'm just a little on edge as of late. I apologize for the nature of my request. My daughter was sick. My wife was cheating on me because she was lonely. I needed to be home to reclaim my family. Hey, she stood up and took my hand. I love you, Adam. You're a good guy. You're going to go home and you're going to fix this. I already have a replacement lined up. You do? This part was new. I never stuck around to learn who she would put in my position. Lawrence will take over. Lawrence Heath? Lawrence Heath was an Air Force liaison officer. He had more training and education than I did, so from a technical standpoint, he was a good choice. But he was also Alyssa's ex who transferred to Japan after she miscarried their son. He wants to marry me. Her voice was so angelic, calm. Time stood still. I can feel a sharp pain in my chest. Leo? Please tell me this is a dream. Leo placed his hand upon my shoulder. What do you remember about Lawrence? He never actually hurt her. Alyssa miscarried in the middle of the office. You drove her to the hospital. You held her hand while she cried. Where was he? He was at work. He came to her as soon as he could. I loved her like a sister, and I know it broke her when he left, but she loved him. I reached my hand to touch Alyssa's frozen cheek. I hope they found happiness. Impressive, Leo said, starting a slow clap. I turned to see my guardian angel sitting on an office chair, his rainbow hair flowing about his face. I wonder how someone so noble ended up in a place like this. What? With a jolt, I was back in the swamp. My chest felt like it was going to be crushed, and my head was throbbing. In my hands, I felt an unbearable burning sensation. But I know perfectly well why that was. Shooting up heroin between your broken fingers tend to fuck shit up. I forced myself to scoot backwards until I felt myself leaning against a massive tree. The rough bark cut in the skin of my back and neck, but I was still grateful for the opportunity to rest. Lightning cracked the sky, forming a distinct series of patterns. W-R-A-T-H. Wrath. I couldn't help but smirk. I mean, I had plenty to be angry about. So I was actually curious as to where the angel was going to take me next. I'm ready. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I could hear the sound of a plane landing. My skin was no longer in pain. My heart was beating a mile a minute as I stood in the cool, air-conditioned TSA waiting room. I knew where this was. When I opened my eyes, I was meeting my daughter. My wife and I had tried for years to conceive, but it was never meant to be. At the age of 30, we started the process to adopt from China. After years of waiting, we stood hand in hand in the immigration office of Jackson, Mississippi. China had been our last hope. For whatever reason, we were unable to even get on a waiting list for a European or North American baby. That was another reason I was nervous. This little girl was already 6 months old. What if she took one look at me and decided, nope, I'm not going to be able to love this military redneck white folks? I was scared. Fate had a reason for never blessing us with a biological child. As the adoption rep put the baby in my arms, I felt only the light of God's love. Hello, Cece. My wife scoffed. I thought we agreed on her name. Annabelle Riley. Felicity June Severgen. That's her name. My daughter's name. The next few moments flew by in a blur, but in a painful number of them were of me abandoning my family. As the years passed, I saw myself in uniform, leaving for deployment. Moments when I truly believed that I might not come back alive. Other times, I was just in sweatpants and a t-shirt as I kissed my family goodbye. Before my eyes, Cece transformed from a toddler to a teen. I suddenly felt a wave of nausea. The last time I saw Cece, she was no longer the beautiful girl I remembered. I closed my eyes and fell to my knees. Oh God, I knew that what I was going to see. My angel, my reason for living, in a medically induced coma. She never told you what really happened, said Leo's disembodied voice. I stood up to see the angel standing over Cece's bed. My wife told me it was pneumonia. I'd never made it to my daughter's side to see for myself. Marnie told you that, knowing it would take you at least a month to get home. The wounds healed by then, and what didn't heal could be explained away. Ironically, after a seizure, she did develop a sepsis infection in her lung, and that pneumonia. Leo made his way to Cece's side and held her hand, but you didn't see what she looked like the day of the phone call. Leo kissed Cece's forehead. I'm so sorry, little one. This will only last a moment. I had a feeling I was not supposed to hear that last part. Cece had a breathing tube, but as time regressed, it vanished, replaced with a monstrous number of wounds. She cried and screamed, her face covered in bruises, cut, and clearly broken bones. Her clothing transformed into a short blue dress, one I'd never seen before. Time stood still as my government-issued phone rang. I hit my thigh only to feel no pockets. The phone was in the palm of my hand. Hello? Hi, Daddy. I remember this conversation. She said she came home from a dance. Homecoming, prom. I went to a party, Cece said, her voice cracking with sadness. It was great. Silence. Leo poked my arm. Hey, it's your line. With trembling hands, I moved the phone to my mouth to speak. That's great, baby. Should go, she said, as her breathing became labored. It was clear she was trying not to cry. I love you, Daddy. Marnie came in the room just as Cece hung up. Hi, sweetie. Do you feel up to talking to the police officers? They need to get your statement and do a rape kit. Yes, Mom. Cece glanced at the phone, giving it a squeeze. I'll be okay. I just wish Dad was here. I got to see the rest of the scene, according to her statement. She had been raped, beaten, and left for dead. That was how she escaped, when her date and his 3 friends thought she was dead. They locked her in the trunk. She remembered what her father had told her about how to escape a trunk and managed to not only kick out the taillight, but also she got the trunk open while the piece of shit car was going 40 down a back road. Battered and bloodied, she ran for her life until she found a way to the main street. Leo placed his hands upon my shoulder. What would you have done if you knew the truth? I would have fucking killed the bastards. Really? Leo waved his hand to focus back on the scene. Marnie took a seat, holding Cece's hand. What did you tell your dad? Nothing. I didn't want him to be disappointed in me, she said, burying her face in her pillow. I could never be disappointed with you, I said out loud. I knew she couldn't hear me. That hurt more than anything, but not more than the feeling of my leg getting blown off. A sharp pain shot through my leg. Suddenly, I was back in terrorist-occupied Iraq, riding in a supply convoy. A larger truck ran us off the road into an IED. At least that's what I was told. The vehicle I was in exploded, and I was pinned under the rubble. Somehow my leg was extracted from the mess and sent along with the rest of my broken body to Germany, where I spent the next few weeks waking up. At the time, my home station was in Colorado Springs, Colorado. That was where my wife was living with a then 11-year-old Cece. I remembered I'd asked that I'd be transferred back to my family. If I was going to die, I wanted to die at home. My superiors, the U.S. military, they owed me that much. My next memory was of Cece staying by my side. I suffered burns over 25% of my body. There were bone shards, and my hips and my leg had been put back together with pins and rods. It was a unique sensation to be a living mass of pain. The local medical team determined that I would never walk again, so the goal was to make me comfortable. I was allowed at-home hospice care. This meant I was placed under the attention of a nurse for administering therapy and medications. But during the majority of the week, my wife was tasked with wound care. At least she was supposed to be. My wife never touched me. To do so would have meant to show some level of compassion. I remember Cece asked the nurse to teach her how to change the dressing on my leg. I have to assume the nurse thought she was curious and adorably sweet, because otherwise it was not the safest practice. I closed my eyes. When I awoke, I was back in the wonderful moment. Cece. "Hi, Daddy," my little girl said in a calm whisper as she donned oversized medical gloves. "Hi, sweetheart," I replied in a hoarse whisper. "If I hurt you, I'm really sorry." She changed out the gauze using a little bottle of peroxide to wash the open wounds. I flinched but tried my best to stay quiet. "My mom said I needed to say goodbye," Cece explained as she worked with a gentle touch. "She told me the only reason you came home is because you're too sick to go back." I don't believe her. She finished in silence before getting a clean blanket from the closet. "You're going to walk again." She cuddled my side, resting her head on my shoulder. Superheroes don't die. My heart filled with a sense of faith that I didn't know was possible. She spent her summer by my side, changing my bandages, helping with the physical therapy. I was also working with a therapy nurse who was impressed by my level of strength. For Cece's 12th birthday, she had a party at the One Base movie theater. I paid the bills, but Marnie took on the responsibility of making the day special for our daughter. Cece invited her entire class. She looked so genuinely happy. I arrived in my wheelchair. As the movie played, it was Step Up, some kind of dance movie from the golden age of hip-hop music. The movie was played in the projector as background noise as the kids ate pizza and talked. I waited in the back until she noticed me. "Dad!" She broke off a conversation with several friends to run over to me. "Oh my God, Dad, did you just get here? How was your therapy appointment?" From my wheelchair, I reached to the cane at my side and stood up. Cece cupped her hands over her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. I took my first pain-stricken step since the accident that would have taken my life. I stood tall, strong, as Cece threw her arms around me. "I love you, Daddy. You're my hero." She paused to wipe tears from her eyes. "But does this mean you're leaving again?" I was. I could have taken medical retirement, stayed with my family, but I needed the money. I needed to pay off a mortgage, send my daughter to a good college. I wanted to make my family proud, so I took a position in Alaska as a squadron leader. That's when the addiction started. Painkillers led to heroin, loneliness led to gambling and prostitution. All because I left behind the one person who truly cared. The world went dark. I was sitting alone in an empty theater as Leo appeared on the screen. "Hi, Adam. Wow, this is certainly an interesting view." "Yeah," I replied in a weak voice. "Well, I have to ask, what would you have done if you knew the truth about your daughter's assault?" All I could do was laugh. The situation was clear now. I was dead, and this was hell. "You really want to know?" Leo shook his head. "Look, I am not a sadist. I just have a job to do. I was a human once, just like you. And no, you're not in hell." "Forgive me if I don't believe you." The man laughed as he turned towards the theater with a one swift motion, seemed to jump from the screen. He walked towards me with a fabric of curtain attached to his back like wings. "So, what would you have done?" "Her attackers were never prosecuted. If you had a moment with those boys in a soundproof room with just a revolver, what would you do?" I thought for a moment, and I had no one to blame but myself. I would eat my gun. Was Cece dead? I needed to know. If she was gone, I truly wanted to die. Leo approached me, placing a hand upon my shoulder. "Much better. On to the next test." I gripped his arm. "Why should I trust you?" Leo rolled his eyes. "Maybe because I'm the one with the magic powers." "You're my driver," I said in a tone, and came off ruder than intended. But what would happen if I said I'd rather walk to my final destination? Leo chuckled and shrugged. "Hell if I know. Maybe someone will find your body. Maybe you'll reunite with Cece in heaven. Or maybe she'll survive and grow up believing that her hero abandoned her. What do you want from me? You said you were human once. I want to know something about you." Leo cupped his hands to my face, tracing a finger along my jawline. He appeared to be studying my features, which gave me an opportunity to study his. "What do you see when you look at me?" "You have green eyes," I whispered. His eyes were hypnotic, his breath warm, comforting, human. I know what it feels like to love someone until it hurts. Leo leaned in and kissed my lips, breathing a long, constant stream of air that seemed to crackle with electricity.